December 2022. Canada announces the winner, Lockheed Martin, F-35. Done deal. Saab lost. Pentagon celebrates. Monopoly secured. Fast forward to January 2026. Leaked memo shows Canada inviting Saab back, not for consolation, for revenge. What looked like Pentagon's victory in 2022 might become the biggest strategic humiliation in modern defense procurement history. And it all starts with one number that changes everything. 7 years. That's how long Canada waits for F-35s they already paid for, while Russian bombers probe Arctic monthly. Saab can deliver in 3. The math is brutal, and Pentagon knows it. Here's what makes this absolutely devastating. Canada isn't just reconsidering. They're potentially inviting Saab to build domestic production facility on Canadian soil, competing directly with F-35, using Pentagon's own timeline failures as justification. The leaked assessment circulating through NATO capitals right now contains language that should terrify defense planners. Quote, 2022 procurement decision based on capability assessment, 2026 reassessment based on delivery timeline reality, operational requirements, supersede political consideration. Translation, we chose F-35 for capability, but if you can't deliver when we actually need it, we're bringing in the team you beat to solve the problem you created. This breakdown reveals how winning a contract means nothing if you can't deliver, how Saab went from loser in 2022 to potential kingmaker in 2026, how Canada's frustration could hand Saab the revenge opportunity of the decade. Because in defense procurement, the winner isn't who signs the contract, it's who delivers operational capability when the threat exists. The 2022 decision, aging like milk. Let's establish the facts. March 2022. Canada announces fighter competition results. F-35 wins. Saab Gripen eliminated. Not even close, according to public statements. Canadian government emphasizes F-35's superior stealth, sensor fusion, interoperability. All legitimate capability advantages. Nobody disputes F-35 is more advanced aircraft technically. Saab issues gracious statement respecting Canada's decision. Pentagon officials do victory lap about alliance cohesion. Lockheed Martin stock jumps. December 2022. Contract signed. 88 F-35A aircraft. $19 billion Canadian. Initial payment transferred. Politicians announce strengthened Arctic defense. Everything looks great on paper, except one detail gets buried in technical annexes. Delivery timeline. First aircraft, September 2029. Full Arctic operational capability, March 2032. From contract signature to defending Canadian Arctic, 9.5 years. Here's the part that makes this delicious for Saab. During 2022 competition, Saab's timeline proposal showed first delivery in 24 to 30 months, operational capability in 36 months. Canada could have had Gripen defending Arctic by 2025. Instead, they chose F-35, arriving 2029. 7-year wait for superior capability versus 3-year wait for adequate capability. At the time, Canadian officials determined capability advantage justified timeline difference. Fast forward to 2026, and that calculation is changing dramatically. The wait isn't theoretical anymore. It's real. Russian bombers aren't waiting until 2029 to probe Canadian airspace. CF-18s aren't magically staying young. The timeline that seemed acceptable in 2022 feels very different when you're 3 years into a 9-year wait. And here's the controversial take nobody wants to say out loud. Choosing capability you can't access for a decade over capability you can use in 3 years isn't strategic planning. It's strategic failure disguised as technical sophistication. Make sure you're following this channel for analysis that breaks down how defense decisions really happen behind closed doors. Hit that subscribe button because this gets even more brutal. The leaked assessment that destroys the 2022. Logic, January 2026. Document leaks to Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. Title: Fighter Procurement Timeline Reassessment, Operational Impact Analysis. Marked Internal Defense Ministry only. Somebody clearly wanted this public. The assessment examines whether 2022 decision still serves Canadian operational requirements given current threat environment and delivery timeline realities. Language is clinical. Implications are nuclear. Key findings destroy the 2022 justification paragraph by paragraph. Finding 1. CF-18 Fleet structural life limits require retirement by December 2028. Not flexible. Not negotiable. Physics of metal fatigue. Finding 2. F-35 initial operational capability, estimated June 2030. Creates minimum 18-month gap where Canada has zero modern fighter capability or relies on U.S. Air Force support from Alaska. Finding 3. Gripen procurement initiated today, achieves IOC by Q2 2029, eliminates capability gap. Finding 4. Russian Arctic activity increased 47% since 2022 baseline. Threat intensifying during exact period of Canadian capability gap. But here's the section that really twists the knife. Page 11. 2022 procurement evaluation weighted capability advantage over delivery timeline based on assumption that timeline difference was acceptable given low immediate threat environment. 2026 threat assessment indicates assumption no longer valid. Capability advantage in 2032 provides zero deterrent value during 2029 to 2031 period, when CF-18 retirement and F-35 delivery gap creates vulnerability window. Translation: we thought we could wait. We were wrong. Timeline now matters more than capability edge. The recommendations section reads like indictment. Recommend immediate evaluation of supplemental procurement options delivering capability prior to F-35 IOC. Gripen represents proven platform with established NATO interoperability and delivery timeline addressing operational gap period. They're saying Saab lost in 2022 on capability. But capability doesn't matter if it arrives after you need it. Pentagon won the battle in 2022. About to lose the war in 2026. Why Saab is perfectly positioned for revenge. Here's where this becomes strategic nightmare for Lockheed Martin. Saab didn't just lose in 2022 and disappear. They stayed engaged, kept talking to Canadian aerospace industry, maintained relationships with Bombardier, never stopped positioning Gripen as solution if circumstances changed. And now circumstances have changed dramatically. Current Saab production situation makes revenge viable. Brazil's Gripen order completes deliveries by Q2 2027. Czech Republic's order doesn't begin until Q1 2028. Gap exists in Saab's Linköping facility production schedule. Empty capacity from Q3 2027 through Q4 2027. Perfect insertion point for Canadian order. Saab representatives are telling Canadian officials they can begin deliveries by the fourth quarter of 2028 if contracts signed by mid-2026. 18 months to first aircraft, compared to Lockheed's 84-month timeline that's already running. But Saab isn't just offering aircraft, they're offering something far more strategic. Domestic production partnership, technology transfer, manufacturing facility on Canadian soil. The leaked assessment reveals Saab proposed joint venture with Bombardier at existing Mirabel facility in Quebec. $5 billion investment, 24 to 30 aircraft annual production capacity, 40,000 jobs, complete supply chain development. This isn't just buying fighters from Sweden. This is building Canadian defense industrial base that competes with American monopoly. Permanently. Pentagon's worst case manifesting in real time. Saab leverages their 2022 loss by offering solution to the problem F-35 timeline created. Can't deliver fast enough from Fort Worth. Fine. We'll help you build them in Quebec. Canada gets timeline solution. Saab gets revenge. Pentagon gets humiliated watching closest ally build competitor facility because Lockheed couldn't deliver on schedule. The irony is almost too perfect. Pentagon pressured Canada to choose American in 2022. That choice created timeline problem. Timeline problem creates opening for European competitor to build production on North American soil. Unintended consequences on steroids. The numbers that make Pentagon panic. Let's break down why this has Pentagon officials panicking. Current situation: Canada committed $19 billion for 88 F-35s. Already paid $1.9 billion deposit in 2022. Zero aircraft delivered. First delivery, 2029. Operational capability, 2032. Meanwhile, Russian Arctic incursions documented at 31 incidents in 2024 alone. CF-18 intercept success rate dropping as airframes age. 16% successful intercept rate in 2024, according to leaked Canadian Air Force statistics. That means 84% of Russian probes complete missions before Canadian fighters arrive. Not theoretical problem, active sovereignty crisis. Alternative Gripen timeline, contract signature mid-2026. First delivery Q4 2028. IOC Q2 2029. Full capability Q4 2029. Compare to F-35. IOC Q2 2030. Full capability Q1 2032. Gripen operational defending Canadian Arctic 30 months before F-35 reaches same status. 2.5 years of sovereignty versus 2.5 years of vulnerability. For Canadian military officials watching Russian bombers monthly, that timeline difference isn't academic. It's survival. Financial analysis makes this even more attractive. Mixed fleet approach being discussed. 44 F-35s for high-end capability. 44 Gripens for immediate timeline and Arctic deployment. Total cost roughly equivalent to full 88 F-35s, but delivery timeline dramatically compressed. First operational squadron, Gripen mid-2029. F-35 supplement arrives 2030 to 2032. Canada gets both timeline solution and capability enhancement. Pentagon gets strategic humiliation as closest ally reduces F-35 order by 50% to bring in competitor they beat in 2022. Export implications multiply the damage. Poland, Romania, Bulgaria, Greece, Portugal all watching Canadian reassessment closely, all facing similar timeline versus capability trade-offs. If Canada brings Saab back and establishes North American production facility, suddenly timeline-frustrated NATO allies have new option: Western Hemisphere production by trusted ally. Pentagon's worst-case cascade where one ally's defection creates template, others follow. Strategic defeat from winning 2022 competition, but failing on 2026 delivery expectations. How Lockheed created their own problem. This is the part that makes this brutally ironic. Pentagon and Lockheed Martin did this to themselves. Nobody forced them to overpromise and underdeliver. Nobody made them build production model prioritizing US orders over allied partners. Nobody required them to create 800 aircraft backlog, making delivery acceleration structurally impossible. These were choices, and those choices are creating the opening for Saab's revenge. F-35. Production reality. Fort Worth facility produces 156 aircraft annually across all variants for 17 customer nations. Current backlog exceeds 800 aircraft. Canada signed December 2022, joining queue behind 340 existing commitments. Simple mathematics. 340 aircraft divided by 156 annual production equals 2.2 years before Canadian production begins. Add 18 to 24-month build cycle. Result: September 2029 delivery. Cannot be accelerated without bumping US orders, delaying partner nations, or expanding production capacity requiring 3 to 5 year timeline, and billions in investment Lockheed won't commit. When Canadian officials asked about delivery acceleration in recent discussions, Lockheed response was basically, "Sorry, Q is Q." Pentagon back to this saying production priority structure cannot change without congressional authorization. They're trapped by their own success. Too many customers means nobody gets fast delivery. Contrast with Saab's situation. 4 current customers: Sweden, Brazil, Czech Republic, Thailand. Lower backlog. More production flexibility. Sweden historically adjusts own delivery timing to accommodate export customers because Swedish orders fund production line needing export sales to remain economically viable. When Saab tells Canadian officials we can deliver in 18 months, they can actually do it. When Lockheed says 7 years, they cannot accelerate. Here's the quotable moment: the competitor you beat in 2022 can solve the problem you created. That's not just ironic. That's strategic incompetence, creating your own competition. The humiliation Pentagon fears most. Here's what keeps Pentagon officials awake. March 2026. Canada announces mixed procurement. 44 F-35s maintained. 44 Gripens added. Justification: operational timeline requirements supersede political considerations. Saab facility partnership announced with Bombardier. $5 billion investment. Quebec jobs. Technology transfer. First delivery, 2028. Operational capability, 2029. 3 years before F-35s achieve same status. Pentagon forced to respond. Cannot criticize openly, because that proves they prioritize monopoly over allied operational needs. Cannot promise acceleration, because production structure prevents it. Cannot claim Gripen inadequate because Canada's own 2022 evaluation deemed it technically sufficient. Strategically paralyzed. Media narrative writes itself. Closest ally reduces American order by 50% to bring back European competitor because Pentagon couldn't deliver on timeline. That's not just contract loss. That's public humiliation, demonstrating American defense industry cannot meet allied operational requirements. NATO cascade follows within 90 days. Poland announces similar evaluation, citing Canadian precedent. Romania schedules Bombardier facility visit. Bulgaria expresses interest. Greece cites timeline concerns. Each allied nation referencing Canadian decision as validation for their own timeline-based reassessment. Saab's revenge complete. Lost in 2022 on capability evaluation. Wins in 2026 on delivery timeline. Establishes North American production facility. Captures market share Pentagon assumes secured. Uses American allies' sovereign territory to compete with American manufacturers. Employs American failure to deliver as business development strategy. The team that lost becomes the team that solved the problem the winner created. That's not just competition. That's strategic humiliation, proving your victory was premature because you couldn't execute on your promises. The endgame nobody saw coming. Final analysis. Lockheed Martin won the competition in 2022. Saab might win the contract in 2026. Pentagon won the ally in 2022. Might lose the monopoly in 2026. All because the team that won couldn't deliver fast enough to prevent the team that lost from becoming the solution. If this plays out, historians will mark it as inflection point in NATO defense procurement, the moment when timeline requirements became weighted equally with capability assessments, the moment when delivery execution mattered as much as technical specifications, all triggered by closest ally deciding operational requirements supersede political sensitivities about bringing back the team America beat 4 years earlier. Saab's potential revenge isn't about winning on capability. They already lost that fight. Their revenge is winning on execution, delivering what they promise when customer needs it, solving the problem the winner created, and Pentagon has nobody to blame but themselves. They created this through production model prioritizing maximum orders over timely delivery, through promising capabilities without ensuring delivery time